Mr. Chair, just a reminder about the,
No?
sounds good.
Okay, approval of agenda. Has everybody seen the agenda? And
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
got a motion to approve it, and second by Tim. All those in favor say aye.
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 Agenda's approved. How about the meetings, notes from the meeting from the last hearing in July?
Walk through them, I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
We got a motion on to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Minutes from July 21st, from July 20th have been approved. On to the first public hearing. Sear LLC request for variance. The applicant is seeking approval for an after-the-fact variance to the conditional use home occupation standards for platted subdivisions in the Clay County Development Code to allow the continuation of an existing business in Lot 3, Block 1 of Jepson's First Subdivision, 643 Highway 9 South, Glidden, parcel ID 25.060.0103, Section 8, Township 139N, Range 46W in Riverton Township. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Matt, would you please show us details?
Yeah. It's a request for a variance to the standard of having a business in a platted subdivision. Some policy considerations from our county code are goals that kind of guide these decisions. General goal number one, maximizing the potential of Clay County as a thriving center for ag, business, and recreation while maintaining and enhancing its livability. Establishing a comprehensive growth management strategy for Clay County that promotes orderly and efficient growth of residential, commercial, and industrial development while preserving the county's rural character. Planning for the orderly and efficient growth of commercial and industrial development. And a policy under that is allowing for home occupations in agricultural areas and small community-based retail in the county's unincorporated rural communities. So this subject property, it's zoned ag general. It's permitted use as an interim use in this zoning district. So this is where it's located, kind of right dead center in the middle of the county. A little closer up. The property is about a little over 3.5 acres. There's a residence, 2 outbuildings on site. The buildings total about 10,800 square feet, and there's about 1 acre of parking space. So a little bit about this. Jepson's subdivision was a 3-lot plat. It fronts State Highway 9. It was platted in 1981. The property is on the southernmost portion of the lot, so down here. 2 neighbors to the north and none in any other direction, and this property is well screened by trees. So this business has been in operation on the property since 1997. In 2012, we adopted a new development code basically for businesses run out of a home. And it just says that one of the standards in there is that conditional home occupation shall not be located on lots not located in platted subdivisions. Conditional home occupations may be located within the dwelling or a separate non-residential farm building. So there's some expansion that happened to this business, one of the outbuildings, and then the parking area, and that occurred after that adoption of the 2012 Development Code. If this business roughly stayed the same size, it'd be considered grandfathered in, and we wouldn't be here today. One of the things with after-the-fact variances is there was a ruling in 2009, I think it was a Minnesota Supreme Court ruling about how after-the-fact variances are treated. They should be treated a little bit differently than a regular variance request. And that case basically established 4 criteria for consideration. And I've kind of responded to each of these criteria for consideration. So the first one is if the construction was complete. In this case, yes, construction's complete. Two, if there are similar structures in the area, and I'd say these outbuildings are very similar in form and design to other structures in the area. And then three, if the benefit to the municipality, in this case Clay County, of enforcement compared to the burden on the applicant if compliance was required. And I would say in talking with our county attorney that the burden of compliance with the code for the applicant far outweighs the benefit of enforcement. Specifically that he's been running this business here for, over 20 years. And it's a business that fits well in the county in providing some value-added ag services. And then the fourth being that if the violation was intentional or unintentional, I would say it's safe to assume that the applicant was not aware of updates to the development code. So that occurred in 2012. I would say that probably 99% of the county was unaware of updates to the development code. So again, decision is based on not only these after the fact variance considerations, but taking these into consideration when you're actually looking at the findings of fact, your practical difficulties, that the property is going to be used in a reasonable manner, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. Variance will not alter the essential character of the locality, and just that economic considerations alone don't constitute practical difficulties. They can be part of that decision-making process. Any questions for me at all? Anything you want to see?
I have one question for him, Chair. Matt, when it comes to home occupation, isn't the limit if you have more than 3 employees you need to get a permit, or was it under?
It's 5.
Was it 5? So why would he need to get a permit if he only has himself and 3 employees?
It also depends on the size too, square footage.
Okay.
So like in a subdivision, platted subdivision, you could have a home business, but really you're limited to like 1,200 square feet of your home or an accessory building, and then family employees. And actually that number being, if it's 5, the planning commission can actually say, oh, well, 5 might be too few. You can actually,
Yeah.
the planning commission can
Add
say,
on
oh, you
more.
can have more employees. So, yep.
I have a question.
Yep, good, Paul.
Tell me how, 99% don't even know it went into effect. What brought this forward, especially being he built a building, and what happened between now and 2019?
Well, I'll say that home occupations, I think, can be a little trickier or hard to understand than just your conventional.
No, what brought this to you?
We just get calls from people
okay.
driving. Highway 9's a busy.
Okay.
Yep.
Citizen,
Yep.
that was brought in, okay.
I will say that it was likely no one who lives within a mile or 2 miles of this property, because we did not receive any comments. We received one comment, and it was a positive comment supporting this. So we didn't receive any comments from anyone against this.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Matt? Anybody? Questions? Well, I guess at this point, would the applicant like to speak to the board about your application? They might have questions for you. Why don't you up and introduce yourself and
Hi, I'm Brian. I have no idea what to say because we've been there since 1997 and nothing's changed other than built another building. And we have 3 employees, not 5.
anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Remember when you were at Coke and we were hauling Coke there?
What's that?
Remember when we hauled Coke to Coke?
No, but I know where you live. I got just south of you there, so, yeah, it's, that doesn't surprise me. I was there quite a bit. I saw a lot of people, so, wouldn't remind everybody.
Yeah, that's all I have. Just wondering why it changes in 20-some years.
Any questions at all for the applicant? I'll go once more. Any questions? Anything on the top of your head? Yeah, not, I guess not. Thank you.
All right.
Any other comments from Matt?
Nope, I guess the only thing would just be, it's just that code change that happened in 2012 and that's basically the reason why we'd be here.
This isn't a part of this one, but is there, do you suppose maybe we should, would it make sense to notify? I mean, is there any way to notify the county so people actually know what is going?
It's usually not sent out to all the landowners, but it would be noticed in the paper. I think, I want to say it has to be noticed more than once, 3 times maybe. And then there's at least 1 or 2 public hearings on it as well. And then it's adopted by the board. So it's been updated a number of times. The last 2 was 2005 and then 2012 was the most recent.
Okay,
So,
One more question for Matt. So Matt, I see here you paid a fee for 225, and first time I've been, I can think of after the fact here, for the variance, or at least in recent memory. So is there a penalty to that, or is that the flat fee now?
there's never been a penalty for that because, and oftentimes, when I say after the fact, I'd say most of the time, it's not the fault of the landowner. The landowner isn't at fault. The landowner shouldn't be penalized for that. That's just my thought on it. Unless they clearly know. I think the only instance where that might come up is if someone comes and asks if they can do something here on their property and maybe they need a variance for it and it gets denied and then they go ahead and do it anyway.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yep.
I wouldn't be
So-
in favor of it anyway, but I know on the planning commission, we ran into an off and on. That's
Yes.
why I asked the question.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question for you. Back on your rules there, of the regular, did you say that a home occupation should not be in a subdivision?
That's
That's why we're here tonight. He needs that.
Yep, that is the standard from the code.
Okay, for what it's worth, and you get ahead, is that going to apply tonight for the other, for Haugen?
He's
property?
actually not in a platted subdivision. He's just outside one.
Live in
So,
the country, not a subdivision, for the next meeting.
yeah.
Okay, that wasn't a plotted subdivision, huh?
No, his lot is not part of a platted subdivision.
Okay, that answers that one.
Yep.
Is there any other questions? If not, there's a motion to close the public hearing. Is
So move.
there a second? Tim with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. Moved on to the facts and findings. Did you want to try some of that for here a little bit to generate a little conversation?
I was doing that for the planning commission. I didn't do it.
Just only? Okay.
I could give you my thoughts, but
Okay.
I don't know if you want that.
I probably do, but I'll pass. All the following criteria must be met before a variance will be granted. Granting the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the Clay County Land Development Code.
Yes.
Yes. And I think we should, I'd like to have a reason, why do you say that? Right? A little discussion, so there's more record of just yes.
Because it fits in the county, that type of business fits in the county for agricultural purposes.
And the building structures are of light.
Yeah, but like,
Okay? Is the requested variance consistent with the Clay County Comprehensive Use Plan?
Yes.
Again,
Same as above.
does the applicant establish there are practical difficulties in complying with the strict letter of the Clay County Land Development Code?
Yes.
Yes.
With it being a
There again.
home occupation and not really knowing that in 2012 we changed the code. And he's been there since 97. Doing the same thing.
Okay. Is the variance being granted the minimum variance that can alleviate the practical difficulty?
You skipped 4 and 5.
Oh, did I just skip those?
Yeah.
Oh. Do exceptional or extraordinary circumstances exist that apply to the property in question and do not apply generally to the other properties in the same zone or vicinity, resulting from lot size or shape, topography, or other circumstances over which the owners of the property have had no control or influence?
Yes.
In the code.
What's that? Yep.
The,
The
The-
code
the-
change.
the code change created the problem.
would the literal interpretation of the provisions of the Clay County Land Development Code deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the variance being granted the minimum variance that can alleviate the practical difficulty?
Yes.
Yes.
Does the variance meet all below criteria? No variance shall be granted where any of the following conditions are not met. Adequate sewage systems or water supply
Yes.
capabilities can be provided.
Yes.
The plight of the landowner or hardship is not due to circumstances created by the landowner.
Yes.
The variance will not allow a use that is not already allowed in the zoning district.
Yes.
The essential character of the locality would not be altered, or there would not be a significant adverse effect on the surrounding properties.
Yes.
Yes.
There would not be a significant adverse effect on the public safety or health.
Yes.
Yes.
The variance does not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to owners of other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district.
Yes.
Variance will be granted. We have to vote, don't we?
Yeah, someone has to make a motion.
My mind isn't working the best.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Okay, any discussion, any more discussion amongst the board about what's the plan here? Anybody got any thoughts, concerns?
I move to approve it.
He's been there since 97.
Yep.
I mean, he runs a clean operation out there.
Okay, anybody? Okay. At that point, do you want to make a motion to approve or deny?
Yep, I will move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion to approve and a second by Paul. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion, the motion is passed. Variance will be granted. Thank you. On to the next thing on the meeting, unfinished business. Lake County Comprehensive Plan Update. Matt?
Yeah, I'll just give a quick update to you all on the comprehensive plan update. We've had a couple more meetings. We had a meeting with some producers in Clay County, kind of a focus group meeting, kind of see what issues and opportunities there were that they'd like to see in the plan. A lot of the issues, and Ezra, you can maybe speak to this a little bit, dealt with just land tax policies, I would say. And then just being more accommodating to as agriculture gets bigger, and all the equipment and all that gets bigger, just being more accommodating to that in terms of infrastructure, protecting producers from nuisance complaints, which is already kind of in that right to farm law in Minnesota. Anything else I'm missing? More, maybe being more flexible in terms of allowing farmers to have temporary housing on site for seasonal work. I know like right now that's not really allowed, but should be looked at. Missing anything else? Yeah, yep. Get bicyclists off the streets.
Other people want to have more bicycle lanes, so.
Yeah. No roundabouts. Yep, so, yeah, that was, and then we also. Yeah, Pelotons, Paul. They're all supposed to get Pelotons. So, we also had a meeting with economic development group. So there's actually a lot of folks that work in economic development that work towards bringing some more value-added ag business into the county. And so, among other things, I mean, they were talking about like, how can we get a Tesla giga plant here, but I don't know if Tesla is ever gonna wanna build a battery factory, and who knows, but, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, they already provide you with your internet, so, yeah. But really just the focus of kind of what we've been talking about in our comprehensive plan update so far is really the same as our current comprehensive plan in just promoting the ag-based economy and in Clay County, and keeping that going for the next 25 years of the plan. So, yeah. Yep.
Regarding that farm law, can you expand on that just a little bit? Not specifics, but so much how was that written by the state of Minnesota? Is that statute, or is that by county? And the question would be, how is that message shared? I'm just thinking about myself. You sell something to someone who hasn't lived, well, I'm doing it this week, out in the country on a farmstead, they're taking over, and I'm guessing they're clueless that law even exists.
Oh, yeah. I think most people who are not aware of it,
So I think
right to farm legislation, it's a state law.
Okay.
But
It should be an education piece, whether they.
absolutely,
want to get
there's
to it.
there's a lot of states that have that.
And I
So
think
it's
it
not.
would I think it could potentially help with conflict,
Yeah, absolutely. So,
especially when it originates. I'm just saying, I don't want another regulation or another rule, but the ability to have something perhaps, even among the Realtor Association, to pass information out for people that are moving to a farmstead.
yep. And we're seeing, and I know you're probably seeing a lot more of it too, there's a lot of just farmsteads being subdivided from ag land and being sold
Yeah,
to people who want to live in the country
right.
for the trees and bluebirds, as you said.
Because I'm just saying,
Yep.
I've had the experience of people saying we're working too late at night.
Yeah.
Harvesting.
Yeah. And I get a lot of calls from people, and I basically is what I tell them is, you live in an area that's zoned to prioritize agricultural uses. And so that's just part of it.
And some of it is the areas that touch the edges or near the edges of municipalities that are going out in subdivisions.
Yep.
And I think of the Holly area in particular.
Sure, absolutely. So, no, I do get a lot of calls about that. basically, if it's not a newly established operation, so say someone puts in a few grain bins with a portable dryer, and all the fans are pointed at someone's house who's, 500 feet away, and they're just going 24/7 for that person, and it's new, the landowner, the resident, would actually have some grounds, some rights there. But-
Nuisance noise.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
So, but if it's something that's older than 2 years, it really, all the protections are for that producer. Yep, so, yep. Yep, but,
Thank you.
yeah. And so, yeah, so we had that with the economic development group. Then what they call the study review committee, so everyone who's kind of driving the plan is, I think they're gonna meet on October 12th. Yep, so. And I should also say that there is a rural cities and county meeting in this room on October 12th as well. So that'll be like your Sabins and Hitterdals and Ulands and Georgetowns and Comstocks meet with the county and go over issues, Barnesville being one too, so. That'll happen on the 12th as well from, I think, 4 to 6. So. Yep, yep. Yes, yep. So the plan really on that meeting is, part of this plan has like a transportation plan, and then a land use as well. I think that'll be the two main focuses of that. Yes. Yep, so. That's all I have for that.
Any other questions for Matt about comprehensive plan? Anybody? Done? On the new business, Matt?
Yeah, so, unfortunately, this is Perry's last hurrah on the Board of Adjustment. So you have termed out. Now
Yeah.
you can focus 100% on the condo association.
Yep, and keeping those bluebirds and trees going out.
Yep, getting those donuts and getting that coffee ready.
Yep,
Yep, so,
along
Yeah.
with my full-time job.
yeah, and in addition to that, so,
Yep,
yeah. So, just want to thank you, Perry, for your, what is it, 9 years?
you know,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah,
but it's been a pleasure to serve the citizens of the county and to serve with all of you. Thank you.
yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
Perry, I want to thank you for with your experience and your knowledge, also your due diligence to check into things and observe over the years. I mean, it's really made a difference, and for the time I've been in here, you've definitely been a mentor to me, and hopefully we can. And we'll do fine, but I'm just saying, we're missing a piece without you. So-
Well, thank you. It's
and we-
very
and
kind
we-
of you to
and
say
we-
that. Thank
We'll
you.
build on it, but you're certainly, your years of experience and involvement made a difference.
It's been a good experience for me. Thank you.
And I'd like to also say, Perry, I've been on here 3 years and I've enjoyed very much sitting across the table from you and all your knowledge.
Appreciate that.
I guess at this point, we got a plaque of appreciation for you.
Wow, that's a nice. That's very nice. Thank you.
We want a speech? A big one?
Nope,
Okay.
glad to be a citizen of Clay County.
Okay.
Do you have your successor picked out?
I do not.
So, well, we did have, I know, when you came on, we had two other interested parties, Linda Eckery and Tom Jensen. And Linda is no longer interested. She's overcommitted. So we do have Tom. I don't know if we reached out to him or not. I could reach out to him, or we can open it up. Okay. Yeah, we can put something out and we'll definitely let Tom know, because I think he's applied twice, so. Planning, yep, so, yep. On the east side of the county, yeah.
Last month, exactly. Sure, I'll consider that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think, yeah, because a good portion of the variances requests are shoreland related. So,
That's probably a reasonable request, but the last time I put it out there, everybody was from North Moorhead, in Holly, and Tom is from Barnesville. This is about as far east as we've ever got anybody in the last couple times here.
Yep.
But just saying.
yeah. So,
Anything else, Matt?
nope.
I guess, if that is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I will second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Perry.
Turn your microphone on, Bill. Thank you.
All right. Roll call has been taken. We have a quorum. We have enough here. Approval of agenda. Has everybody taken a look at the agenda and studied it? And is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
You got the second?
Steve?
Steve Lindas, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Agenda's been approved. Approval of minutes from August 17th, 2021 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the meeting's notes from before, last month? Any corrections? Anybody see any corrections, or hearing none, anybody want to make a motion to approve as presented?
So move.
I'll second.
Any second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting minutes have been approved. Citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens in the audience to talk, wants to speak on anything not on the agenda today? Gotta go through this a couple times. Anybody in the audience to speak on anything that's not on the agenda today? Did you have any call-ins, Matt, or any of you call-ins? Once more, anybody in the audience want to speak on anything that is not on the agenda today? Hearing none, we'll move on to the first public hearing. Sear LLC, request for interim use home occupation permit. The applicant is seeking approval of an after-the-fact interim use home occupation permit for an agricultural trucking and logistics business in Lot 3, Block 1 of Jepson's First Subdivision, 643 Highway 9 South, Glendon, Minnesota, parcel ID number 25.060.0130103. Section 8, Township 139N, Range 46W in Riverton Township. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is open. Matt, could you please inform us on this hearing, please? Application?
Yep, this is a request for an interim use home occupation for a trucking business. Go through our policy considerations from our current comprehensive plan. First general goal of our plan is maximizing the potential of Clay County as a thriving center for agriculture, business, recreation, while maintaining and enhancing its livability, establishing a comprehensive growth management strategy for Clay County that promotes orderly and efficient growth of residential, commercial, and industrial development while preserving the county's rural character, and then planning for the orderly, efficient growth of commercial and industrial development in the county through the application of appropriate zoning districts and regulation. Policy under that being allowing for home occupations in agricultural areas, as well as small community-based retail in county's unincorporated rural communities. This subject property is zoned Ag General, and use is permitted as an interim use in this zoning district. So pretty much in the county there, just west of Buffalo River State Park and east of Linden, south of 10 and Highway 9. Close up of it. So the property here is 3.58 acres. There's residence, 2 outbuildings on site. Total square footage of the buildings is 10,800 square feet. And then there is a parking space about 1 acre on there as well. This is in a subdivision fronting State Highway 9. This subdivision was platted in 1981. That property there, as you can see, is the southernmost lot. There are 2 neighbors to the north and none in any other direction. Property is well screened by trees. So this business has operated on the property since 1997. It's an ag trucking business. There's 4 employees. That includes the owner. So the request is to allow the applicant to store equipment and operate their business. They have 3 employees other than the owner. They're operating year-round trucking, mostly ag-related commodities. They're registered with the Department of State as an LLC. They'd essentially be used to store equipment for the business. It's based out of the 2 existing shop buildings. One was built in 1999 and one was built in 2019. And I kind of gave you the square footages of those 2, just a little over 10,000 square feet. And the closest residence just being about 100 feet to the north. So conditional home occupation standards considered small, so I'll just kind of summarize these. One thing I will say is that conditional use home occupations, they have to meet a certain set of standards in terms of number of employees and size. If they are not to be located in a platted subdivision. The applicant did just get a variance from the Board of Adjustment this evening, so the business would be allowed in a platted subdivision. I think the main thing here is, in terms of the standards, is the size. Since this is primarily operated out of accessory structures, if you have a new home occupation business Your accessory structure or your structures that are used for the home occupation can't exceed 10,000 square feet. However, if you have a new structure and a existing building that was maybe greater than 5 years older from the date of this permit application, that can be included. So you could, if you had, some old farm buildings and a brand-new 10,000 square foot accessory structure, you could actually have up to 30,000 square feet of buildings for your home occupation. The minimum lot size is 80,000 square feet. This exceeds that. The employees typically limited to persons residing in the dwelling, immediate family members, and up to 5 additional non-family employees. This business meets that standard. The Planning Commission, you can allow additional employees if you see fit. Sign, just 32 square foot sign, just have to meet the setbacks. Planning Commission has to consider traffic generated by the use and impact on roads. Any adverse effect to the character of use is permitted in the district. Performance standards, so just equipment or processes used in the home occupation, creating any excessive noise, vibration, glare, fumes, odors, or electrical interference. You might require some buffering. The home occupation shouldn't create usage exceeding the capacity of available on-site sewage treatment and drinking water. This use doesn't exceed that, and then parking as well. I should say too that some of this was considered by the Board of Adjustment in granting their variance as well, just considering adverse effect in terms of if the variance would alter the essential character of the locale, and they found that was not the case. So, and I talked with our chair about this. One thing that I am maybe trying to do in order to have us focus on the draft facts of finding in order. I don't know if I should start singing this. Yeah, I could dance, yeah. So in considering the findings of fact in order and looking at these a little more closely and making sure that we're touching on each of these and discussing them, I put them all up on the screen, and then I've just added maybe some starting points for discussion. You as a board, if you like what I put, you could definitely just leave them or change them as you see fit. But I figured it might be nice for each one to have kind of something for us to go off of based on application that I received and then the research that was done. And Mr. Chair, I don't know if we want to go through these now or if you just want to have any questions. We can kind of save this too.
If people want to go through the facts and findings, and they can see it then, and we can talk about it then.
Go through them?
Go through them at the facts and
Go
findings.
through them at the.
Yep, okay. So any questions for me at all about this request? One of the things that I'll say about, pull it up here. I think one of the reasons why, in addition to this business of being established in Clay County for 20 plus years, and then also just the kind of the essential character and nature of the neighborhood, in that there aren't really, it's a platted subdivision, but there are only 2 other neighbors to the north, and really it's just a lot of ag land surrounding that. That's one of the, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, but one of the reasons why it seemed reasonable to grant that variance, because even though this is a platted subdivision, it's not like a subdivision where you have houses, an internal road servicing smaller lots with houses on each side of the street. It's right up to a major highway, and there really isn't a lot of other, I mean, there is residential activity around it, but there's also a lot of ag activity as well, so.
Yeah, there's nothing around there other than the neighbors to the north, and if they haven't issued a complaint or,
Yep, I only heard from one neighbor, Mr. Chair, and he just asked if the use was gonna change or be the same, and I said, my understanding it's gonna be the same, and he said, okay, great. So, no concerns,
no opposition.
no opposition. Any questions for me at all?
Do you have any questions for Matt on this application? I can see thoughts going around. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
How did this come to this committee? Hadn't this had a conditional use prior to this, or just, how does it,
No,
how did it spark this?
No permit. It's just being on a busy street and some recent changes to the property, I think is what.
Oh, just sale of the property, or?
No, in terms of just addition of additional building and adding of a kind of a concrete parking area, kind of being on a busy street, people call and ask.
It hadn't had a conditional use permit prior to this?
No.
Okay.
Nope, if it had a conditional use permit, yeah, that would run with the land and as long as the conditions were being met.
Anyone else have questions for Matt? Once more, anybody come up with any yet? Everybody shake their head no, I think, but. Okay, at this point, would the applicant like to address the board to, about your application? Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Brian with Sear LLC, and I don't know what more to ask other than why it changed since '97, since we've been out there. And we added the cement to make it look good, keep everyone happy, and that's about all. Keep it clean.
Anybody have any questions for Matt, or for Brian?
Can't. I wanted to buy land on the other side of the woods, but they wouldn't sell it. Otherwise, we would never would have put it there. Because we had a nice grove of trees, had to take all the trees down and. No, I don't wanna grow anymore, I'm done. It's time to slow down, yeah,
Land is a premium, no matter where you go.
yeah.
Land is a premium. Anybody else have any questions for the applicant? No questions for the applicant? Final questions for Matt? Hearing none, is there, applicant for against, I got it written down here, see that, skipping. Is anybody in the audience to speak for or against this proposal? Anyone in the audience to speak for or against this proposal? Once more, anybody in the audience to speak for or against this proposal? Hearing none. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Public hearing is now closed. Go through the facts and the findings, and let's take a look at what Matt has proposed here. What is being asked that a little more discussion on each point, so that there's a record that says that each point was discussed. That is basically it, right? A more public record that each one has been discussed. In granting an interim use permit, the planning commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use upon the land or the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants of surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses, traffic conditions, including parking facilities on adjacent streets and land, and the effect on agricultural usage and the values of property and scenic views in the surrounding area, and the effect of the proposed use on existing comprehensive plans. I think in Matt's comment there, he has use is compatible with the agricultural zoning district. Have not received any complaints about the business. Any other comments? No change to the business as it was before? Okay. Any others? The interim use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and shall not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity. Commented here was use is screened from adjacent residential properties to trees to the north, properties maintained in a neat, orderly manner.
Yep.
Okay. From now on, I'll let somebody else read them out loud so that you guys. Okay? The establishment of the interim use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area. Any volunteers?
The surrounding properties are residential and agricultural.
Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide public utilities, access roads, drainage, and off-street parking and loading spaces.
Uses the fronts of a state highway. The property has ample parking screened from the adjacent residential properties, and drainage from any amount or impervious surface may need to be addressed, but I have no concerns with that, having driven by that area before.
Yeah, he's got, I think, about an acre of parking spots. There's plenty of parking there. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage, and off-street parking and loading spaces.
I think the concrete that's been added helps with any dust that may happen, and I believe the hours of operation and screening of trees is adequate.
Nuisance conditions, am I down to 5, right?
Yes.
Adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, and water pollution and soil erosion, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs or other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result.
I think the grove of trees in there screens all that.
There's a pretty good grove there.
Yeah.
The use will not create an excessive burden on parks, schools, streets, water supply, sanitary sewers, and other public facilities or
Not applicable.
services that, other than, the only one out there is Highway 9.
Highway 9.
Yeah.
But if he has all that concrete in there, he's not dragging mud or anything up onto 9, so.
No. No. Compatibility, the use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent agricultural zoned or used lands so that the existing homes will not be depreciated in value and there will be no deterrence to agricultural use of said land.
Again, screened with all those trees, that thick grove of trees around it.
The structure and site shall have an appearance that will not adversely affect, have an adverse effect upon adjacent residential properties.
That screen trees is good.
Green trees, and it's just a well-kept area. I mean, that place is immaculate.
And the building is quite nice. The use is, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and to the existing land use. It's not in a floodplain area. So, next one.
Yeah,
We agree with that one, is in the,
not applicable.
Not a, yep.
at least the floodplain part. Inconsistency, let's see, the use is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district and with the applicant intends to use the proposed district, the proposed use.
Agricultural zoned.
Okay. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan, if any, of the township, city, or county.
Not in conflict.
Traffic hazards, the use will not create traffic hazards or congestion in floodplain, and in floodplain areas.
Not applicable.
Okay. Well, it will not create traffic hazards or congestion, correct?
Correct.
Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected or because of curtailment of customer trade brought on by an intrusion of noise, glare. There is no other nearby businesses
Not applicable.
at this point. Any discussion amongst the board at this point?
Mr. Chair, I just put up the following minimum conditions, recommended conditions
Recommendations?
in your packets.
Okay. Minimum conditions? Everybody read those? Got them?
I have a problem with number 3, hours of operation. On a trucking outfit like that hauls livestock,
Yep.
they're kind of put to the mercy of the slaughter plants on when they gotta be there. 'Cause I ship pigs and I load at 5:30 in the morning, so the truck would have, if I would be using him, he'd have to leave by 4:30 to be at my place by 5, so he's ready to go by 5:30. So hours of operation, I don't know if we could really set hours of operation on a trucking outfit like that, just because you're at mercy of the slaughterhouses, not of the guy that's loading the pigs. Yeah. Yeah, so. He's already been doing it. Yeah, operating for 20 years, yeah, so. Yeah, so hours of operation, I don't think we should. Yeah. Pulling out or anything, yeah, so. So I don't think there should be any conditions on hours of operation.
And it's not 20 trucks at a time leaving, the
No,
facility
it's
either, so.
4 employees accounting himself.
Any other comments? Any discussion?
I agree with that. I think the other piece to it too is oftentimes you haul in darker hours because of the temperatures and coolness of animals. I think that's the other piece to add into it. It'd be different if he had a feedlot he was offloading in his yard. I mean, that's
Yep.
not happening.
So Mark's head pop up. You have a question? Comment?
I think he's gonna make a motion.
I make a motion to approve as presented and hours, however we want to put hours of operation 24/7. I mean, as,
I would just put 1 and 2,
Staff recommendations of 1 and 2.
yeah, conditions of what?
with conditions 1 and 2. That's my motion.
We have a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion's passed. Thank you. Permit would be granted.
We have a caller online that we need to identify.
Roll call, didn't I? No, I didn't.
701 number? Erica?
Could the caller with the 0507 just identify yourself for the record? You can hit *6 to unmute.
Hello,
Hello.
my name is Brady Olson.
All right, thank you.
Okay. On to public hearing number 2. Darren Haugen requests for interim use home occupation permit. The applicant is seeking approval of an interim use home occupation permit for the landscaping business in Lot 00A of Registered Land Survey Number 3, 7610 40th Street North, Moorhead, Minnesota. Parcel ID number 23.011.2003, Section 11, Township 140N, Range 48W in Oakport Township. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Public hearing now open. Matt, could you please fill us in on this one?
Yep, this is a request for a home occupation for a landscaping business to be operated out of a residence. Again, with the policy considerations, these are the same goals as the previous, just maximizing the potential of Clay County as a thriving center for ag, business, recreation, while maintaining and enhancing livability. And I think the kind of the main one here, land use goal 4, planning for that orderly, efficient growth of commercial and industrial development in the county, allowing for home occupations in agricultural areas. So this property and all adjacent properties are zoned ag general. A home occupation is allowed with an interim use permit in this zoning district. This property is 5.96 acres, so about 6 acres. There's a residence and one outbuilding located on the site. And this use meets or exceeds the setback requirements. So this is located up in Oakport Township. There's a lot of residential development to the south and then some to the north. This board had approved or recommended approval of a platted subdivision in this area back this spring, and the Board of Commissioners approved it. This is actually not in the platted subdivision, so no variance required here. It's actually right outside of it. So the request is to allow the applicant to store equipment for their business on their residential parcel. This business operates year-round doing landscaping during summer and snow removal in the winter. The site would be used to store some of the equipment for the business in an existing 5,600 square foot shop / storage building. There's also about a 3,360 square foot shop attached to the residence that could be used for the business as well. So this brings that square footage to under 10,000 square feet at 8,960 square feet. There's adequate space for parking on site, and as the driveway and parking area are concrete, and the nearest residence is 200 feet to the north. And then there is going to be a residence to the south. It has not been constructed yet. So they currently have 7 employees. And though I believe they have another site in Dilworth as well, and I'll let the applicant speak more to that. We have heard some concerns from neighbors about impacts of equipment and traffic on the neighborhood children, as well as just how much equipment might or materials might be stored outdoors. And these have been also heard by Oakport Township as well, and Mr. Shervin, I believe that you've heard. Yep. Okay. So this is the property, and I think some of this concern might be that there's still construction going on at this property and landscaping going on at this property as well. So just some of the neighbor concerns have been about just storing large equipment outdoors that can be seen from their residence. And some concerns that I've heard are that it would end up like the business in town in Dilworth. I will say that has been the business in town. He isn't the only business on that property. There's other people storing equipment on that property. So the home occupation standards, I think if you want me to go through them again, I can, or if there's any you want me to touch on at all. Really, I think the big one is that maximum square footage of 10,000 square feet. He's under that. And then minimum lot size, again, 80,000 square feet. He's well over that as well. And then the other thing just being that employees shall be limited to residents in the dwelling, immediate family members, up to 5 additional non-family employees. You can allow as you see fit, additional employees of traffic, parking, utility, and impact surrounding properties are addressed. And again, with conditional home occupation standards are to address things like traffic and roads, just considering any traffic generated by the use, adverse effect on the character of the uses permitted in the district, anything that might cause any nuisance in terms of noise, dust, vibration off the premises. You can require any buffering, just that the home occupation isn't going to exceed the capacity of the sewage system or drinking water. And then any considerations for parking. And then I have the draft facts of finding in order. Again, any questions for me at all on this?
I have one question, Matt.
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Did you show the applicant these 5 conditions? Is he aware of the conditions that you have here?
The 5 conditions.
That staff recommends the following minimum conditions?
I can run to that.
Or,
No.
oh,
They're essentially based off of what we have in our standards
Yeah.
and then what was on that application,
all right.
so.
Any other questions? I had underlined something here, and I guess that one kind of looks at it here, but it said the equipment storage will be in an existing 5,600 square foot shop being built. This is adequate for all parking. There is adequate space for parking all equipment on site. And then my question was going to be, is it going to be stored or is it going to be on site? And that's probably going to be a question for the applicant. So we'll wait a few minutes for that. Anybody else have any questions for Matt?
I have one more question for Matt, Chair.
Okay.
Can you zoom in on that picture on? You see this picture?
Yeah,
Can you zoom in? What's across the road there? Is that?
yeah. So this is the area. You've got development to the south.
What is that? Is that a
Looks like-
farmyard or
And yeah, that's what it looks like, farmyard.
farmyard? And he's right across the road from that, right?
Correct. This is Borgen's right here, and then this is Kuhl. Yep. Red Rock
Borgen's
Stables.
or the
Red Rock
place-
Stables.
That's a place north. Or is that Borgen's? Okay.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
So there'd be some equipment in there. I mean, just farm equipment.
Yeah, it's an ag area, so yeah, ag,
This-
that type of equipment's expected.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Some people's definition of ag equipment is just a tractor, not a loader, and not, other stuff that is ag equipment, but people don't figure is ag equipment sometimes.
yeah. And the applicant can speak to this too, but I think my understanding is that there are going to be quite a few trees going in along the property line in all
All around,
directions.
yeah.
This house was just constructed, so there's still more site work going on and things like that. Landscaping, I would assume. It's possible.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Question.
He's got a question.
Thank you. I know this is a different hearing, but I don't recall limiting Borgans to the amount of trailers that could be parked outside. Do we remember, was that part of the discussion at all?
For
For Sears,
Well,
you mean?
well, for horse trailers, I mean, I'm looking at the stable here and he's got a line of corners and I just know that typically boarders keep their own trailer at their boarding facility and there looks like there's at least 7 or 8 lined up there. Is that, we didn't put any limitations on that.
Any other questions for Matt at this point? Anybody? Any other questions? Okay, at this point, would the applicant like to speak to the board on the application?
Darren Augen with Haugen's Landscaping, the owner. Guess I'm here because everybody thinks I'm working out of my home, and I'm not yet. I'm in my own area. Everything that's there is for working on the house on its own. So we're working on trying to finish up by fall, I guess, for what we're doing. So I didn't really think I was going to move everything out there. It wasn't really my thoughts, but maybe over winter I would use it, you know, for having things inside for maybe that part. Our area where we're at right now is very, very small. So we have kind of grown over the years to need a little bit more room. So that's kind of my reason, I guess, for doing what we're doing. But, you know, if you drive out, look at my lawn and that type of thing, it's gonna be the nicest lawn out there for sure. But just got to get everything finished up. We're waiting on everybody to come, and you know what that's like right now. Yeah, so we're working on it. We don't really, everybody's worried we're going to have things like alongside the driveway. That was the only where we had anything to put during the whole deal of whatever process. So that's all been moved. It's all been filled with semis now. That'll have water sprinklers over there, and it'll have trees up to the driveway, and nothing's going to be parked along the road or anything like that. So, yep.
Is your building going to be heated?
Yes, correct. Yep. My shop that I have. That's, yeah, we don't, my wife won't allow anything to be, you met her once, she won't allow anything to be like that. It's just what you do when you're building it. I've got to have a loader's home for moving dirt. I'm not like a regular homeowner, so that hires everybody to do things. I've got equipment, people think I have things at home, you can bring it all home, and then you don't have to bring it from home. But, that's basically it. What else do you guys want to ask?
So is it, there's a limit there, you can have up to 5 employees based out of there.
Yep, and that's about our maximum. When I wrote that, you know, I also added the ones that live in our house as workers too.
Yeah.
My sons are 2, so that'd be 7 total. So I might grow 1 or 2 guys, but I'm not looking at growing any, so
But
I'm getting old.
We could put it at 7 or 8.
Yep, you'd be fine at that, yep. Nope, I'm not getting rid of my site in Dilworth. I don't have any plans. I added another year to my lease there, and I like it there for what we do there, and why would I want to run back and forth out there all the time? So, yep. Anything else you guys want to know? Anybody need any work done? We got a little time in our schedule.
Wrong place, wrong time.
You're good?
Any other questions? No, wait.
I have a total, well, currently right now, it's me and my 2 sons, and I have 3 guys who drive for me. So right now, currently this time of the year, it'd be, if you wanted to count that, I only have 3 actual workers and then my sons and me. That would be yep, that's about max. In summertime, we probably have some other kids around, but I don't know that they'll come out there. They'll probably meet at our shop and punch in there where the time clock and office is. So this wasn't really something I wanted to do, was open a home permit, but enough are calling me in because they see all our stuff there and think we're working from home. So. Yeah, we really didn't, yeah, it wasn't really, I mean, it's something where we need some extra room to put stuff inside when it gets cold, you know? So I'd definitely use it for that, but I own a lot of things, and it's gonna be nice to have that shop done so I can put it inside.
And I would imagine the part of the thing from Oakport, from talking to Tim earlier, people are concerned that you're gonna put stuff outside behind it, the way it sounded to me.
Behind the shed, yes,
Yeah,
correct.
between that and the agricultural zone, or between that and the.
Yep.
Property with.
I made a lot back there, a parking lot, and, if I want to have the guys pull up there, if we do move out here, who knows what it's going to get like where we're at, you know? People are doing bad things all the time in town and vandalizing cars, cutting off stuff, exhaust. If that starts happening to me in town, yeah, I probably want to move out there, you know? But I've been where I'm at for years and I really haven't had any issues with anything, so. Yep.
I just heard a lot of concerns about, you know, you get done with the job, you bring home bricks that you throw in the pile.
We don't have any bricks.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you're gonna do that.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. My wife won't allow it. She's extremely fussy, so.
For what it's worth, you used to live on Highway 9, right?
What's that?
You used to live on Highway 9.
I lived on Highway 9 and nobody drove by and thought that looked like a mess. I lived right
Oh, I
down the
got
road
actually
from
have the
these
property
guys.
right to the north of you there.
And they actually bought my house, so
Yeah.
I guess it was okay.
But I will say that place is pretty neat.
Yeah, I had the second nicest yard in Clay County at that place. And the only reason somebody had a better one is because I'm the one that pretty much worked on it for her. And she was home all the time to do a good job and I wasn't there. So I'm hoping this is number one, but we'll see.
I didn't drive by there all the time, but for the times I did go past this property, there wasn't much stuff there. There might
No.
have been a camper there, maybe a boat, maybe.
Yeah,
You had a big
every
building
once in a while, depended on what was going on, but we had our rigs in the shop there in the wintertime, right down from them, and nobody turned me in for having a semi inside the garage, so.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Any other questions at this point? Okay, thank you.
All right.
Is there anybody in the audience to speak for or against this application at this time? Oh, come step to your podium, please, introduce yourself.
My name is Tim Hoff. I live at 7447 40th Street North, which would be a little bit south and west of Darren's property. My main concern is that there's no definition or lines that we can go to if they're crossed. I just heard him say that we may grow, I might get more stuff. We're having problems in Dilworth. I might bring my stuff out. If everything is inside his building and out of sight, out of mind, I don't have a problem with it. I'm worried that I'm going to have an industrial park across the road from my property. And I don't know how that benefits me or my community. That's what I'm worried about. The trees that you're planting, I don't know if he's going to have a nursery there. I don't know if someday I'm going to have landscaping rock out in the yard when I come home from work sometime. Without any rules or definitions that we as residents can go back to, it's just a free-for-all right now is how I'm seeing it. And I don't know how to get any other answers or how we can define to make sure, because he has a beautiful property. He does. It's really nice right now. I don't know what it's going to be like in 2 years from now. He signed a 1-year lease in Dilworth. Maybe he quits and brings everything out. Then what do we do? We have all the equipment across the road from us. I don't see how that is a win for where I live.
Other comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. Unless somebody else wants to go.
I'm talking to this man first.
Okay.
No, I've said what I wanted to say, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else to speak for or against this application? Apparently we have one online, on the phone. Now's your time.
Brady?
Is it Brady Olson? Yeah.
Hi, this is Brady Olson. Darren has at least 4 businesses under his corporation. He can probably say, oh, I can just do all that under the one name, and that's fine. But that brings semis, that brings all kinds of snow equipment. We're talking, there's no way he can put that stuff under his roof and hide it from view. Number 2, he is a North Dakota foreign corporation with all of his businesses in Minnesota not paying any of the Minnesota licenses and things like that. He is not, he speaks out of both sides of his mouth. I'm not saying another word.
You have any other comments at this time? Thank you for your comments. Okay,
Thank you.
does anybody else have anything to speak for or against it?
My name is Dulcie Hoff. I'm Tim Hoff's wife. This community is growing out there, and it's becoming a very much family-oriented community. Just straight across from us, a family moved in with 5 kids. They homeschool. I homeschool my daughter. I don't want an industrial area in this part of the community. I really don't. We moved out there to be in the country, and that's how I wanted to stay. I don't know about your business that you have with snow removal, but do you have salt trucks? I mean, if you have salt trucks, the salt is going to stick. And we just got that highway. I mean, just in the last couple of years, that highway's out there, which is beautiful. There's a bike club that comes out there Thursday nights with a lot of people. We have a veteran that walks on there daily. We have moms in their strollers that walk out there. We have an older couple that walks out there and rides a bike. I'm just saying that, so I'm coming from a mom's point of view. I'm coming from, this is a home area. We have small children. We have people who are using it as that. And as taxpayers as well, I don't want to see that road go bad. I mean, we just, like I said, we just got that highway out there. I don't know, like my husband said, who's going to be the parking patrol if he brings more out and it just sits out there? And I don't know, you have that one side of your lawn, beautiful, it's gorgeous, but I don't know what you're doing to the other side, if you're leaving it black.
Need to address this us instead of him.
Address
sorry.
us, don't address him.
Okay.
You got to talk to us, we're done.
Okay, so I'm sorry about that. I don't know how this works. I'm just giving how I see it out there right now. So I would be concerned about how it's growing as a family unit out there. And people have moved out there to get out of the city. They've moved out there to get away from what happens in the city. And so those are my concerns. I really don't want to see this industrial machinery coming out. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else to speak for or against the application? Anybody else in the audience to speak for or against the application? Give everybody one last time. Anybody else, any comments for or against? Hearing none? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second by Steve.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Public hearing is now closed. Facts and findings for this one. Effective use. In granting an interim use, the planning commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use on the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants of surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses, traffic conditions, including park facilities and adjacent streets and land, and the effect of agricultural usage and values of property and scenic views in the surrounding areas, and the effect of the proposed use on existing comprehensive plans.
It's a zoned agricultural, and it's not in a subdivision. It might be next to a subdivision, but it's still agricultural. And some people might think a loader is industrial, but also I would look at it as being agricultural. And equipment like that would be also agricultural. And he's in the landscaping business, which is agricultural.
Any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I drove out there this morning, and that's got commercial written all over it out there. It's out in the country, a farmstead across the road, a horse boarding stable with many trailers across the road. Directly to the north is a big shop with big overhead doors. And he's got a nice home and a nice shop, and he's developing it nice. And those lots aren't residential lots. What is it, 6 acres? I mean, they're big, they're targeted for something like this, and it's a perfect spot for it, in my opinion, and in looking at it. And it's out in the country. If he wants to store his fish house or a loader, or it's agricultural, he's gonna have pickups, he's gonna have trailers. He's in the country, it's agriculture, it's commercial, perfect spot.
I think we do have to recognize, though, that there are concerns that neighbors have expressed.
Yep.
They are. But with Mark, I don't know that you can, if you're gonna use the loader for a commercial business, you can't turn around and say, well, it's agricultural, to park it out in the open there. But that'd be a difference of opinion there. I wouldn't buy that, but personally, but.
There's industrial parks where he's kind of in an industrial park in Dilworth, and these big lots, I would consider ag business industrial park. Those big lots weren't targeted for a two-bedroom, two-bath house.
Probably weren't. But on to the next one. The interim use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity.
So this one, we really need to talk about the screening or indoor storage of the vehicle.
Can you please use your microphone?
Oh, I need to speak towards the microphone, I'm sorry. Yeah, so this needs to be addressed by either having all the equipment stored indoors or potentially be screened from adjacent properties. And, you know, I think that's potentially one of the suggested minimum conditions that could be met.
We could have him plant trees, make that a condition that he has to have plant trees all the way around, or.
Yeah.
Require the screening and then do something about the storage. Problem with storage too is that nobody drives their equipment straight into the building and drives it straight out of the building and straight into the building. I've had my own business, that's not how it works. So there will be times when equipment is visible to the general public. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to get around that at all times. I think if the equipment is in storage most of the time, or when it should be in storage, that's about what we're gonna have to be able to live with. But there's gonna be times when you're busy working and you're not gonna move that equipment into storage every half hour because somebody doesn't wanna look at it.
So if we have him screen it with trees,
You've gotta have some kind of screening
Yeah.
that'll help.
Screening. The other thing is, my understanding is that he's not actually planning to run this as a business.
not outside of his house here.
Right,
He still plans on using Dilworth.
right.
I understand it more as this is gonna be the storage facility for all the
Exactly.
equipment, that he's gonna run everything mostly out of the other facility, and this is more of a storage facility.
So then it's much easier to keep it either screened and/or stored inside, which should address a lot of the concerns that the neighbors have.
And I will add, the trees are not screening, not for the first 30 years, 20. Screening would have to be fencing.
I don't know, drive by my place, those trees are 10 years old.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I built 8 years ago, and you put some cottonwoods and some flame willows in there, and you have a
Poplars,
screen.
you gotta
with-
screen.
Dogwoods grow like weeds, so.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't count those as trees, I count those as weeds. I'm talking,
There's trees that grow pretty fast now, that,
yeah. Okay,
and a landscaper, I think, would know which trees to plant.
but still, then you're still talking 10 years.
Yeah, but
They wouldn't be a valid screen for at least a certain period of time.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of how we address all of the other businesses that we've talked about. I certainly understand concerns and whatnot, but I think we have to be careful about making one business hide 100% of their things 24 hours a day, but we have not put limits on other businesses. You know, Joel, you have a boarding facility. We did not talk about trailers when we did your boarding facility. And I understand that we want things to look tidy, and I think there is a avenue for residents to follow up on the conditions that we were to put on. That's why we have your department, and we added an extra technician to make sure that we follow up on those. So there is an avenue to make sure those are corrected. I just really want to be careful that we're not treating others as fairly as others.
Yeah.
Excellent point. Everybody has to be treated equally. Otherwise, if you put on maybe painful restrictions on him, maybe you'd have to go back and readdress everything else in the county and maybe apply it to them also, is what you're saying, I believe. So, okay?
I think that's true, but things do change, so sometimes conditions are updated, and then people get grandfathered in.
Agreed. I totally agree with that. We did that barn less than 2 years ago, though.
Yeah.
And that's in the same area across the street when there were areas. I think we should put some sort of limitation on it. There's a property in Barnesville that you know what we're talking about on 52, where we talked about making sure that, you know, if there were X amount of trailers, they were at least tidied or some in storage. I'm quite frankly jealous at the amount of storage that this facility actually has, but, you know, if I think about my personal property, I've got a grain truck and a camper and a boat. I mean, so we have to think about what's a normal storage for homes and then home occupations.
To go along with Jenny there, I was gonna bring that up, Jenny, about that place on 52. And he has allowed so many vehicles outside, and he has no screening. It's wide open. And I was wondering if in our conditions, if we couldn't put something like that, that he'd be allowed so many vehicles outside.
Yeah. What Andrea said, out of sight and stored are two different things a lot. Just because you can see them for a while doesn't mean that they're being stored there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
I do have one just thing to point out, and when you're looking at the findings of fact and order, some of the things the findings that you're looking for are use and enjoyment of other property or development of surrounding property. And so, yes, it's important to be fair when applying conditions to a permit, but at the same time, not every business is sited in the same space, and the development in the immediate vicinity can be very different from business to business. And one of the points of having a conditional use permit is to add conditions that can address some of those concerns in a manner that is equitable to both the applicant, but also in a manner that does address legitimate concerns that nearby property owners may have. So just important to keep that in mind too.
Okay. The establishment of their interim use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area. Any comments on that one?
Well, the surrounding properties are residential or agricultural, which is
Which, yeah, he's both.
right.
Yeah, that's why he's going after a home occupation.
And it is allowed in that area. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage, and off-street parking and loading spaces.
There's a big yard in there for all that parking and.
Well, I think he said he put a lot in the back for parking. Yeah, okay. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odors, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs or other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result.
Does he also have a bunch of concrete poured out front there?
Yep, and in his application, he did state that his intention is to store everything indoors.
Indoors, yeah. And then he also has concrete parking and.
Yep.
and, yeah, so that keeps down dust and
Yep,
doesn't bring a bunch of mud onto the road and.
yep, exactly.
So does this, the applicant isn't planning to put a sign, business sign or anything flashing, right?
I mean, he'd have sign standards if he
We
did.
do have sign standards. They're pretty minimal. They have to be set back, yeah. I mean, he could in the future if he wanted to, but
But you're talking a big neon sign out there flashing at.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what.
no. They're limited they're pretty small, like 32 square feet.
30,
so,
yeah, it's 4 by 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And he did not at his other property, I will say that.
Didn't have a sign.
Didn't have a sign at all. Doesn't mean you can't add one here, but he didn't have it. The use will not create an excessive burden on parks, school streets, water supply, sanitary sewers, storm sewers, and other public facilities or utilities that will serve or propose to serve the area.
Well, the highway takes care of it.
Yep, it's a county state aid highway, so 55 miles per hour. I mean, it's meant, yep,
10-ton.
I believe it's a 10-ton. It's meant to handle sugar beet trucks and combines and, yeah.
The use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent agricultural zoned or used land so that existing homes will not be depreciated in value and there will be no deterrence to agricultural use of said land.
That's addressed by, indoor long-term storage and screening.
Structure and site shall have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect on adjacent residential properties. And I'll add again, from him living out in the area where I have property, he did not. Okay? From past history, he did not have stuff stored in his yard. Okay? The use is, in the opinion of the planning commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and to the existing land use. In the case of floodplain areas, proof that the location is necessary for facility operation and alternative sites are not susceptible to flooding and not available. What do you got? What's that? It is it is kind of meets the general character with the other farms, the old farmstead and the horse barn across there. The use is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan of any of the township, city, or county.
Not in conflict.
Traffic hazards, the use will not create traffic hazards or congestion. Basically. It's on a major highway, county highway. Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected because of a curtailment of customer trade brought about by intrusion of noise, glare, or general unsightliness. Affected businesses won't be bothered, will they? The horse park or the horse boarding?
No.
This is a time for discussion, folks. We went through we had a lot of discussion there. Is there anybody wants to expand on what we talked about? The facts and findings?
I would like to speak.
Yes.
The public
No,
hearing.
yeah, we're done. Sorry. This is for us only.
For conditions, 1 and 2 are, I mean, we'd put those on regardless. Number 4, 5 additional non-family employees. He says he'll be under that, so that, leave that one. When it comes to storage of equipment, any business-related material shall be within a building or screened from adjacent residential properties. If we also put in a building and screen can be trees, I mean, we should have them, that can be a condition to have them plant trees around the property to help screen it. Right, Matt, that can be a condition, plant trees around the property.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Ezra, I think it might be worthwhile to, talk about what screening might mean.
Yeah.
I don't, from just a staff perspective, don't think that it's reasonable to say that you can't have anything stored outside, but again, it might be unreasonable to have like half a dozen semi-trucks lined up outside too. It's just kind of about finding that balance, I guess.
But how do we find that balance here? He can have 5 semis but not 6, or he can have 5 tractors there and 4 trailers and then a loader. I mean, how do you?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go there and the shops are full and he still has a loader outside, it is, he is in the agricultural side of it, right? I mean, that's where he is.
Yeah.
He's not in a subdivision.
This is not a construction zone.
You're gonna-
Please hold your comments. Can you mute him, please?
So how do we come up with that balance, Matt? That's, like Andrea said, one day there might be some stuff parked out there because, I mean, you're going from one job site to another job site and it just to get parked inside. And he says he's gonna still use Dilworth, I mean, as his main base.
Yeah, and one of the things with a home occupation is there are limitations on the size. There are size limitations on buildings, but there aren't really size limitations on parking spaces or anything like that. There's standards on buffering from neighboring properties and screening. Rows of trees, typically they would help. If there's going to be a parking area in the back behind the outbuilding, putting up a taller fence back there might.
Wouldn't that be screened though if it's behind, there's nothing behind there,
I think.
Building would screen a chunk of it.
Yeah, but you also have properties to the south.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
This wouldn't be a problem if it was look Sears with 20-year-old trees around it already screened off.
Yep, and not as many
there's-
residences nearby. Yeah. Yep. That's it. Yeah,
There's
that's
a grove of trees around the whole thing right now. I mean, we wouldn't be having a problem with screening. It's already screened.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yep.
So it's gonna be, someone else is gonna screen the north side of that, whatever.
Well, I think the applicant also, I think, is in the plans that I saw.
Hey, please, hold your comments. This
You're
is
just telling
for
them
the board only.
2 lots.
Kurt, I would say that's inconsequential. He has to have screening on his property, not rely on the property next to him. That's, anything other than this property doesn't matter, in my mind, not at all. Focus on this piece of ground.
Chair Bill. Matt, is it possible to put conditions on the screening that you have to have screening within a certain time period? I mean, to speak to Bill's point of, if you do decide to plant really nice, I don't know, oak trees, it's going to take a while for the oak trees to grow. But you could judiciously choose screening material or methods to, you know, address residents' concerns that are around much quicker.
Mr. Chair and Steve, I think you could, but again, it just have to be, it couldn't be unreasonable.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a comment, Mr. Chair. I mean, this is out in ag land, and there's a farmstead right across the road. And if that farmstead has 6 trucks and 4 tractors and 2 lawnmowers and a boat and a fish house, it's in the country. Screening, I'm sure that Darren is going to plant trees and make it a nice property. I don't think we need to dwell on screening or fencing, or I think we'd be treating him unfairly. I think over time, he'll have it screened. He's not really operating his business out of there now. He's just bringing equipment here and there. And if he's got a parking lot behind the shed, I mean, we can't tell him he can have 2 or 8 or 3 pieces behind that shed. I think
Well, but then it's
treating him
screened.
unfairly.
And there's a difference between personal property and property being used for the business. And I think that's the question here. And, but I will also say, I don't know if, I'm not even gonna ask him, I'm not sure if he built a property out in Glendon on on 9 there. But he did not have the whole place screened. There's a few trees on the south side, but I think they got sprayed out, be honest with you. And so it takes a long time to get up there, but also if you take his word and go back and look at historically, from what I've seen out there, and this guy's right next to the property out there. I'm pretty old and I've been out there all my life.
Yeah, I know where he was before. Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
He just kept a very, very neat, orderly place.
Yeah.
Okay? And we could talk if there was blue in the face, I don't think that's gonna change.
So,
Because he did say something, and probably one of the most true statements over here, his wife won't allow it. And that might be very true.
so Bill, Chair, if we were to take condition 3 and just put in building or reasonably screened from adjacent, I think that could then give Matt and the planning department the ability to address any concerns that neighbors might have, the reasonable concerns that neighbors might have.
Would that work, Matt?
I mean, we're,
Would that be too open? I mean, that'd be put on you, and what you decide is.
this would allow you to be able to say, okay, they've planted trees, but it's not reasonable for those trees to be 10 feet tall in 1 year. But you can see that they're making an effort.
I'm just gonna say that I don't, I know what our planning and zoning department needs to follow up on, and
Not it.
I'm not sure I mean, we're getting comments on gravel roads and, you know, dusting and making sure people aren't having junkyards in their yard, and I don't have a problem with that, but we're not gonna start regulating tree height.
We could beat this dog to death. And there comes a time where, would it make sense to, if you think, if he wants to store some trailers out there, whatever a trailer amounts to, he has to have a screened in area for the storage
Sure.
of business equipment. Because nobody has a restriction on parking boats, trailers, campers, that stuff. Everybody can park however many of them they want, it seems like. So, you know, the screen here has got to be moved on. Let's make a decision. I mean, think about it. If you think it's got to be a screen, but only on an area that if he's going to park business equipment on. The rest of it don't matter to me.
That's what number 3 says, basically.
Mr. Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Very good. Let's hear it.
I'll make a motion to approve for the interim use permit with
Just say-
1 and 2 and number 4 and nothing with number 3.
I second it.
Can you say why you wanted to take off the screening?
Because we don't know what to screen, I mean, if it was up to me, I mean, when he says he's gonna plant trees, I believe he'll plant trees. But I don't know how would we say you gotta screen the south side of that building because he had a loader parked there for 2 weeks. Now, he moved the loader over here, now Matt has to go back out there, and now you gotta screen this side, because that loader's sat there for a month. I think there's more than Matt has to deal with than worrying about the screening here or there, that's why.
They say, sitting there in storage is two different things.
Yeah,
They're
and if he
not
says,
the
if he says he's gonna store everything inside, you gotta, his previous sites are clean and neat that he's lived at.
But that's exactly what condition number 3 is, essentially.
Yeah,
Well, and I might just
chopped
say,
out.
I chopped it off, because I
would
believe,
keep that.
well,
I think
I
that, you know, I know we have a motion in a second. I think that some of the other sites that we've talked about screening didn't have an existing 5,600 square foot of shop storage space. I mean, that's the
that's
other.
a big shop.
That's a big shop that has that's an existing screening almost, and
Maybe if I could, Mr. Chair and Mr. Linus, I think Matt's trying to, having a difficult time. I think, as anybody knows, the more amorphous that you make something, the more difficult. If it's not direct and you don't put it in there and say, if you choose to put, say, a number or something else like that, it's almost impossible to enforce. You could put it in there and say a reasonable amount, but what's reasonable to Matt or to the applicant versus the people that are out there could all be different. And so the more open you leave it, the more difficult it causes to enforce it. So I think your best thing to do is either make it very direct or not have it in there at all. I think that's going to be your best thing to allow Matt to enforce it, under statute or under ordinance interpretation.
Well, the motion doesn't have it in there at all, so.
Yeah, the motion doesn't have it in there at all.
Never
I
knew that at
second
all.
it.
But I'm uncomfortable not having that in there, and the staff did recommend number 3, so that, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
So I'd like to amend the recommendation to add condition 3 as written by staff.
I'm not for that.
Nope. He's not for
only
it.
if the motion maker approves. it.
Approves it. Yeah.
Right.
Right, we have to vote on the motion we have.
Yeah, if I accepted it, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, who is the second on that?
Mark Leavgard?
Sorry.
You could have an amendment, though, to a motion.
Only if the motion, the person making the motion accepts the amendment.
Otherwise, there's a motion and a second, which ultimately requires.
Yeah, but so when you make an amendment, so you get a second, and then you vote on whether or not people want to do that amendment to the motion.
I've never done it that way.
I mean, I'd have to go back and look for specifically for that, but I believe you have the motion second, you're asking for an amendment, or you've called the question with the vote in a second, so you have to vote on that first to determine if that passes. I think you could bring a motion.
Well, okay, so if he did make a motion to amend the motion, is there a second to his amendment?
It's moot if no one's going to second it and no one's interested.
I think what you would be able to, actually what you would do is you would take the vote first, I believe, then you could make a motion to amend and ask for that amendment.
You'd vote on that then?
And then you'd have to get a second, and you could vote on that. But I think you currently have a current one without a friendly amendment, so you have to take a vote.
That being said, we have the motion to approve without number 3. And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Aye.
We have to take a roll call vote. We'll start with Joel. Joel? Aye. Kurt? Aye. Steve?
No.
Andrea? No. Ezra?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Steve? Mark?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
That is 6-2. So a motion will pass.
Now this is where you'd,
Now Attorney Melton.
Now you could make an amendment or request amendment to that motion.
Chair, so I'd like to amend the prior motion to include condition number 3 to the list of conditions.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll make a second, just to get it on the table.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the first motion to include number 3 for storage of equipment and any business-related materials shall be within a building or screened from adjacent residential properties. Everybody understand what we're voting on? It's clear? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Here we go. Roll call. Joel? Kurt? No?
Yes.
Nay.
No, yes? Nay? Jenny?
Nay.
That has been defeated 6-2. So the motion's approved, it will be approved without condition number 3. Thank you.
Is that all right?
8:30, anybody want to take a?
Keep going, Bill, keep going.
Okay, I'm offering, just asking.
It's a good thing to ask.
Huh? I.e. conditional, I can't say it. Conditional use request for conversion of non-conforming use, The applicant is seeking approval of a conditional use permit to allow the conversion of a non-conforming use office to another non-conforming use commercial daycare in the existing building. Proposed use will be located at 4938 Highway 75 South, Moorhead. Parcel ID number 21.029.4302. Section 29, Township 139, Range 48, R48 in Moorhead Township. Is there a motion to open public hearing?
So move.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Matt, details, please.
Yep, so this is a request to convert one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use of similar or lesser intensity. Again, policy considerations, maximizing potential of Clay County as a thriving center for ag business, recreation. Plan for orderly and efficient growth of commercial and industrial development in the county. Encouraging commercial and industrial developments which do not need public sewer and water to locate within planned urban growth areas and locations with adequate road service. And then planning land uses and standards to minimize land use conflicts, encouraging location of commercial and industrial development in areas that avoid adverse impacts on residential areas. So this is a area on Highway 75, just south of Moorhead. It is zoned highway commercial and has an urban expansion Tier 1 overlay zoning district. It's almost a half an acre. There is a commercial building on site, and the applicant is proposing to use the existing building for a daycare preschool facility. Currently, it's an office space. So this is it, right here. So they're requesting a change from a non-conforming use of an office space to a non-conforming use of a daycare facility. The applicant did receive a CUP in 2018 for this exact use on the parcel immediately to the north. So that was what's now the Nurtured Nest daycare. So the request is to convert that 2,700 square foot building into preschool classrooms for the adjacent daycare. That's on the parcel to the north. The hours of operation would be the same as the daycare, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. It would have 2 preschool classrooms. Site plans don't indicate a kitchen, but the previous CUP did state that all food prep would occur at a licensed commercial kitchen. There is green space for children to play on the adjacent lot. The building is currently vacant, will be remodeled, and that was used for office space. So it's accessible from Highway 75 through a driveway entrance that's located on the property. That entrance serves that lot as well as the lot to the north. It was recently paved. There is a small gravel parking area, has space for about 8 parking spaces. There's a bigger parking lot to the north. There is a newer housing development just to the west, and there are no other daycare facilities nearby. There's about 88 residences or businesses within 1,000 feet of the facility. So I won't go through all of these, but essentially the gist of it is that if you have a use that is a legal non-conforming use that's been in use, you can legally change that to another non-conforming use. This is what was done essentially in 2018 with the property to the north. Essentially just can't, you can't really expand upon that use. So any additions to the footprint of the building, anything like that, would be limited. You can do remodeling, repairs, painting, installation of anything for safety features and to stay up to, for health and safety reasons. So this is in Moorhead's growth area plan, and that plan has this as as moderate density mixed residential, and so we did reach out to the Moorhead Planning Department. They don't have any issues with the request. They just wanted to reiterate, and I think they did too in 2018, that this parcel does not have access to city utilities at this time, and I don't think there's any plans for that in the future. So the parcel is also currently classed as industrial, so that's what it's being assessed as, an industrial lot. The proposed use would be commercial, and that, in my mind, industrial is way more heavy intensity than a commercial use. So here's the site plan, a couple preschool rooms, bathrooms, tornado room, things like that. I think they have an application out right now to DHS, Department of Human Services with the state for a licensed daycare facility. So I'll skip these for a second and just go to suggested actions. These are essentially the same conditions that were put on that 2018 permit to the north. Just making sure that the septic's in compliance, that they're licensed by social services and DHS. They meet just the general review standards for CUPs, have adequate parking spaces, then there's signage as well. And we can bring this one up too. So this is the Nurtured Nest daycare just to the north here. That was permitted in 2018. That also used to be, I think, office space as well. And then this would be the site of the proposed preschool. So right next door, they share an access. This has been paved, and this driveway's been paved as well. Any questions for me at all?
What's the building to the south?
That's also owned by the applicant. And it's also industrial.
I have a question, Mr. Chair, for Matt. Non-conforming use, what is the non-conforming use?
It would
that
be
was?
that it's in the urban expansion district, Tier 1 zoning district. And essentially, a daycare is not an allowable use in that zoning district.
They want it to be housing, or it's right along the highway?
That's essentially basically what's allowed in that zoning district.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. It was or it still is, also highway commercial. And that's, a daycare would be an allowable use in that zoning district.
If it wasn't in tier 1, we wouldn't be here.
You'd be here for it would be the same request, essentially. But because it's been a non-conforming use that's been legal, it's what's called a legal non-conforming use. It's been in operation. There's some flexibility for the landowner to change it to a different non-conforming use. Instances where that wouldn't be the case, where if it was abandoned for more than a year, or if it went from non-conforming to conforming, it could not go back to a non-conforming use again. But going from a non-conforming use to another non-conforming use is legal and permitted. Any other questions from me at all?
Go ahead, any questions for Matt? Anyone? One more, anybody? Okay, applicant, would the applicant like to speak at this time? Yes, we come in, there might be questions for you, so please come up and introduce yourself.
My name is Brian Heidi. I'm the owner of the building to the south and the building that we're talking about right now. And my hope is to rent it out to Nurtured Nest.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about what's going on here?
Do you own the building to the far north, the daycare? Or-
No, Nick owns that building. I own the other two in that parking lot area.
Okay. So this will be two different owners, same company, but renting from two different owners, basically.
He owns the building that's Nurtured Nest right now, that 2018 one you were talking about. He owns that building. The building that he wants to expand into, I own. And I also own the building to the south of that.
This used to be the old radio station in there?
Yep.
That was the building, the old radio station, was that? It's a long time ago.
Yep, and it's a unique building.
Huh?
It's a unique building.
Imagine. Any other questions for the applicant? Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody at this time want to speak for or against this proposal?
Hi, my name is Nicholas Odlin. My wife and I currently operate the Nurtured Nest. I just want to add that there's still a big need for daycare facilities in the Moorhead area. I don't think that's a big surprise. If you look at our reviews on Facebook and Google, they're very, very positive. We have a lot of happy families currently. We're just looking to provide care for more kids. It's 40 more families we can hopefully help out. We were just nominated for Best of the River Valley for daycare facilities in just 2 years. We're very proud of that. We're doing a good job, so you wouldn't be, if you make this approval, you know, we're not doing shady things. It's a very positive facility, and like I said, lots of happy families, so that's all. Thank you.
Any questions? We don't, thank you.
So are you gonna operate the daycare and the preschool?
Yeah,
Same
we'll operate
families, you
both.
think, or you're gonna connect the two of them, so you have same families using both facilities, and traffic is gonna go between the two buildings? Or-
Yeah, and then we have a lot of siblings, so it's, you know, families they potentially could have a kid in one, you know, both facilities, so if that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else to speak for or against the application at this time? Anyone else to speak for or against this application? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Chair will move to close. I'll second.
Joel made the motion and Steve second, Linda second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same? Public hearing is now closed. Facts and findings for,
This is the conditional, right, not the interim?
yep.
Yeah.
Okay. In granting the conditional use, the planning commission shall consider the effect of proposed use upon the health, safety, morals, general welfare of occupants and surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses, traffic conditions, including parking facilities on adjacent streets and land, and the effect on agriculture usage and values of property and scenic views in the surrounding area, and the effect of the proposed use on existing comprehensive plans.
This is good. Daycare facilities are needed, and this is compatible. Well, the property to the north already is one, so.
I do agree. I think you've got homes around the surrounding area. A daycare within the homes that the area is going to serve, I think is a very appropriate place for a daycare to be.
That corner of the world was very fortunate to have them still open. I think there was, rather than closing, so seems like a good thing here. The conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and not substantially or diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity.
Yeah, that's not going to just, it's going to be a benefit, I would.
Benefit of property values. The daycare right down the street.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. The establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area.
Yeah, the other properties are already developed.
Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage, off-street parking, and loading spaces.
Property already has a lot of parking, and yep, and it's right next to the highway, so.
Adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, noise, dust, vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and controlled lighted signs or other signs in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result.
Saying children are loud? Is that why you're laughing?
Yes, they are. I live next to a school. They're kind of loud, actually.
Yeah, I like the sound of kids, so.
Yeah, last year when there was no sound of kids around, it was kind of empty. It was kind of sad, actually.
I don't think they're going to be a nuisance.
The use will not create an excessive burden on parks, schools, streets, water supply, sanitary sewers, and storm sewers, and other public facilities or utilities that will serve or propose to serve the area.
Not really.
Not really.
No. Oops, excuse me. The use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent rural or agricultural zoned or used lands in the existing homes will not be depreciated in value, and there will be no deterrence to agricultural use of said land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no agriculture.
There isn't.
No agriculture in that area.
Not a problem.
It's separated from agricultural land. The structure and site shall have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect upon adjacent residential properties.
I think it'll improve the conditions in that building or that area.
The use is, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and the existing land use. We'll skip that, the rest of it.
Yep, daycare is definitely needed, and so.
The use is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use.
That's the legalistic. It's a non-conforming use change to another non-conforming use, so it's perfectly fine.
Would be inconsistency. It would be consistent with the ordinance.
Yes.
Yep.
The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan of any of the city, township, city, or county?
Nope.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'll just add that I did hear from Moorhead Township on this. They only had questions about parking, and once they realized it was going to be the same operator as the facility to the daycare to the north, then they have no issues with it.
Okay. The use will not cause traffic hazards or congestion in floodplain areas, has access during flooding and or for ordinary and emergency vehicles.
Not applicable.
Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected because of curtailment of customer trade brought about by intrusion of noise, glare, and other general unsightliness.
If it is, the person actually owns the business, so it's not a big deal.
I don't think they'll be gonna cause anybody any problems there. Any discussion?
There's no discussion, Chair. I am happy to make a recommendation for approval with conditions 1 through 5.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the application. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same. Motion carried. I wish them good luck on their in the future. Okay, on to next public hearing. Schmidt and Sons Building Movers Incorporated, request for an interim use permit extension. The applicant is seeking approval of an extension to a previously issued interim use permit to temporarily store 3 houses on parcel 23.007.3100, part of the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter, section 7, township 140N, range 48W, Oakport Township. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Public hearing now open. Matt, please.
Yeah, and this is a semantic thing. I know it says extension on there, but essentially this is going to be just a new IUP since these temporary use permits can only go for 3 months. So it's an extension in theory, but in reality, it's a whole new permit. The other one goes away. So policy considerations, supporting the long-term protection of ag in the county. And then planning land uses and implementing standards to minimize land use conflicts. Being a temporary use, these really don't typically apply. This is in a floodplain fringe though, so something to keep into consideration. So if you remember from a few months ago, this is just up on the edge of the city of Moorhead and Oakport Township. This is the parcel right here, outlined in blue. So it's zoned Ag General, Floodplain Fringe, and Floodway. The houses aren't in the floodway at all. The adjacent properties are zoned similar. This interim use for temporary use is allowed in both the Ag and Floodplain Fringe zoning district. This is a 27-acre parcel right on Broadway Street North, County Highway 1. It's currently used for agriculture. The only buildings on site are the ones that are the 3 houses that are there. So this was granted back in July of 2021 to allow temporary storage of 3 flood buyout homes. That interim use permit was approved with the following conditions: that all homes stored on site shall be removed and this permit shall expire at midnight, September 28th. They should be kept and maintained in good condition, no more than 3 homes, and then just a penalty if there are any houses on there after the permit expired. So the application that we received said there's 1 house on site, but there is still 3 houses on the site as of today. One thing to consider is that the adjacent road, County 1, will undergo construction starting in spring 2022, and homes will need to be moved well in advance of that. The highway department would like to see them moved by the end of the year at the latest, just because we know spring can be wet and muddy and there can be flooding and all that. And so if they want to start construction, be good to have those houses off, or else they're stuck there, basically. So this is the property. Any questions for me at all? I can go to the conditions here, yeah.
Do you have any questions? No questions for Matt? Would the applicant like to speak to the board at this point about your application at this time?
Thanks for entertaining the request for an extension on this. There's a couple extenuating circumstances that impacted this. It isn't that we're looking for all 3 of the houses to be extended. The first house has already a moving permit issued, and our line confirmation is for Monday of next week. So that one will be moving to Georgetown. We didn't get confirmation until late this afternoon from Otter Tail. We've been working on the one that goes to Lake Ida, and south of Moorhead there's a Excel Otter Tail shared line that normally they switch out, and if we go underneath it, Excel takes over until it's turned back on and whatever whatnot. basically, about a month ago, the switching availability from Excel, from what I understand, went haywire, and that won't go back into effect till 2022. So there's really no way to get the house on the south side of that line without going out into North Dakota to get by. We remedied that tonight by, there was a calculation error in the height of the line. We have to have, it's a 35-foot tall loaded house. We have to have 45 feet, being it's a 250 kW line, to make the clearance underneath the line. And the gentleman that retired took all the measurements with him when he retired, so he didn't have an accurate measurement on the line. So we were able to get an engineer out there about 10 o'clock today, and then got approval to go on that one. So October 8th is when that one is scheduled. The other house goes right across the road into the new subdivision on the opposite side of the road there. We're just waiting for them to get their excavating work done, not to complicate the lot. The other request that we tried to honor, we are renting and paying Mr. Goring that owns the land. The land is leased out to a farmer that has horses in the area that uses the alfalfa. The beginning part of the year was pretty rough for him. Now we got a good shot of rain, and he's got a nice stand of alfalfa. So he kindly asked us if he could possibly get his alfalfa cut before we trampled it down going out of there. I know that's not your problem or anything, but we tried to accommodate him on that to make sure that we didn't totally destroy his crop that he had going out of there. So it's not, I'm not looking for an extension just to leave the houses sit there and neglect them. They are leaving. It's just, I didn't want to let it go out until the 28th and then not bring this to your attention beforehand instead of coming after the fact.
Anyone have any questions for the applicant?
So when do you foresee they'll be gone?
Monday, the 27th, the one is going up to north of Georgetown. That move's already scheduled. October 8th, the tan house, we just got approvals going to Lake Ida. Anywhere in between that area, the one can go up to the addition up there. I'm kind of pushing them pretty hard now. The excavator's kind of been pushing us off a little bit and whatnot. So I've been.
By the middle of October, they're probably gone.
Yes, yes.
Any other questions?
And that's, Mr. Chair, that subdivision, I think, is the Preserve on Broadway, right?
That is correct. Andy Noah, I believe, is the one that we've been working with. They had to get, owners had to also go through a step to get approval to move the house into there, being it's a moved-in house instead of a built house or whatever. So they had to do some steps to get that done too.
Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you. We have to go through this. I don't see anybody here. Is there anybody to speak for or against this proposal? Is there anyone to speak for or against this proposal? Once more, is there anybody to speak for or against this proposal? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Public hearing is now closed. Facts and findings. Matt's got us some ideas up there. Ready? In granting an interim use, the planning commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use upon the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants in surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses, traffic conditions, including parking facilities and adjacent streets and land, and the effect of agricultural use and values of property, and the scenic views in the surrounding areas, and the use, and the effect of the use, proposed use on existing comprehensive plans.
It's a temporary situation. Yeah.
The interim use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity.
Same as last, temporary.
Temporary.
The establishment of the interim use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area.
Just temporary.
Yeah, just temporary.
It's temporary again, yeah, okay. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage and off-street parking and loading.
Not applicable.
Yeah, it's temporary and they're gone. Adequate measures have been taken or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion so that none of these will constitute a nuisance. To control lighted signs in such a manner to no disturbance to neighboring properties.
Not applicable.
Yeah, again, the use will not create excess burden on parks, schools, water supply, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, public facilities, or utilities that would serve or propose to serve the area.
Not applicable.
The use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance for screening from adjacent agricultural zone or use plans so that the existing homes will not be depreciated in value. There are no deterrents to agricultural use of said land.
Just temporary.
Temporary.
The structure and site shall have an appearance that will not have adverse effect on adjacent residential properties.
It's temporary, and I don't think those houses have gone downhill since they've been parked there. They still have all their copper, right?
They are nice, they are nice structures. The use is, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and to the existing land use.
Yeah, not applicable.
The use is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and the use in the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use.
Not applicable.
The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan, if any, of the township, city, or county.
That's right, yeah, yes.
There again, traffic hazards, the use will not create traffic hazards or congestion in floodplain areas. Well, this is a floodplain area, but, what's that?
Not until he moves them.
Yep, they gotta be moved. Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected because of curtailment of customer trade
Not applicable.
brought on by intrusion of glare, noise, and the general unsightliness. Any discussion, any comments of what's going on there? I think he presented a very detailed time frame of when they're moving. Just the third one, they're waiting for the place across the side, across the street.
I'll make a motion to approve the interim use permit with conditions 1 through 4.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the permit, the application. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carried. The application is be issued. Okay. Unfinished business. Adam Altenberg, MetroCog. Is Adam still out there waiting for us?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
Can we put him to the top?
Yeah,
Nick?
can we make him wait till the end like this?
Do you sit down line the whole time, Adam? And just listen?
Yeah.
He's still at he's at his office. That's his office.
Probably been drinking.
This is Adam's Monday Night Football, guys, all right? He likes watching the Planning Commission.
I don't mind.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, let's go.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
I'm just gonna flip. Are the slides flipping here?
Oh, your slides aren't up.
Let's see here.
They were. You had them momentarily. There you go.
Working now?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you again, Chair, Commissioners, for your time here tonight. I have just another quick update tonight, including a recap of our focus group meetings, both the ones we had in the last month, as well as a quick look back at the others we had here earlier this spring and summer. After that, I believe we have some time set aside to talk about the community profile, and if there's any additional thoughts or questions about that. But moving on here, we had 2 additional focus groups here in the last month. The first with producers and agricultural stakeholders, and the second with different economic development specialists, or those who work with businesses and employers, both small and large, throughout the county. The producers group was an in-person meeting at the Glendon Community Center on August 26th with 11 attendees. And the economic development group was virtual. We had the meeting on September 10th. We had 13 people participate in that. Among a few of the questions we asked of producers and agricultural stakeholders, these were what are some of the top issues for ag right now? How has agriculture changed over the past few decades? Are there emerging trends that would be good to know about or highlight? And then a question on whether land use controls have impacted agriculture in the county, and if there are certain types of resources that the county could potentially provide. So some of the feedback we received at that meeting, it was noted that if there was a way to ensure producers could have a bit more of a voice when roadway improvements are being planned, and just ensuring that agriculture needs are a consideration when discussing transportation or infrastructure improvements. That was kind of a general theme that was discussed. An interesting topic that came up was the temporary housing of migrant workers, since it's currently difficult to do that on rural properties. That was an issue that was identified. Trucking was another issue that was brought up, and the difficulty in farmers hiring and then keeping truck drivers through the season. We talked a little bit about sustainability initiatives, and it was discussed that farmers have been experimenting with that, most notably with cover crops, but the results have been mixed thus far. And last 3 points here, just that the county should continue working with state representatives to advocate on behalf of the needs of farmers and producers in the area, and potentially take a look at opportunities for more equitable assessments. That was an issue that was discussed. And then lastly, we did have a few discussions on the Heartland Trail, and it was suggested that even though there hasn't been a lot of movement in Clay County, that the task force should consider additional landowner representation. As part of the economic development focus group, we met with representatives from the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC, Moorhead Inc., the Moorhead Business Association, Barnesville EDA, West Central Initiative, the West Central Small Business Development Center, and several other groups. And the questions we asked included what workforce trends you see emerging, both before the pandemic and then, I guess we're not really post-pandemic yet, but what if there's any issues that you're currently seeing. What should the county's role in economic development be? What can the county do to attract or promote businesses and industries? Are there county resources that would be beneficial? And if there were certain programs or incentives that would be good to highlight? So during this meeting, we had a really good discussion, and in hindsight, I wish we had scheduled more time to talk about these different points, but just a few takeaways here. One person noted that perhaps our views of what economic development is are beginning to shift, especially when looking at housing needs in the area, but also how to build community amenities and even welcoming new residents, including new Americans to the area. Another item that was discussed was the effects of what was dubbed the mass resignation, but especially how that impacts rural areas and what tools or programs might be needed to help business owners who may want to exit or transition to another owner. From the Small Business Development Center at Concordia College, it was brought up that they actually had to return something along the lines of $20,000 to $50,000 because of a lack of matching funds for some of the consulting work they do. But when it comes to what the county might be able to do, is brought up that that having information of some sort or some sort of handout about how potential development would move through the planning process, including applications, timelines, that could actually be invaluable to new businesses or industries. Also, sort of a similar comment that we heard in our previous outreach was making sure that the county shared success stories, in this case, how they might relate to businesses or enterprises in the area. And then the last comment, we also had a brief discussion about what other counties do. And it was discussed that some counties do have committed staff that work to facilitate and encourage the development of economic opportunities, and also just keep a pulse on potential businesses. So those are just a few highlights that I thought would be good to share from that meeting as well. So with the two groups we met here in the past month, we thought it'd be good just to briefly revisit several focus groups, targeted outreach that we did here. This includes the meetings we held with the aggregate producers, natural resources back in May, as well as the outreach we did with public safety, emergency response officials, as well as the school districts in the county. So I know we took a look at some of these points back in June, but one area where aggregate producers noted challenges back in May is that the permitting process can be difficult. It was noted that the county tries not to add additional restrictions to that, but while also taking into account what roadways can handle. The aggregate producers we spoke to also noted that diversion likely play a part in local demand. And then one last comment here that we heard from that we also heard from the agriculture producers focus group is that finding truckers is becoming tough and is likely to be getting tougher here in the future. Our conversation with the Natural Resource Group, again, this was thinking back, included the watershed districts, Soil Water Conservation District, Nature Conservancy, and others. This was really good, and just a couple points here, kind of a small sampling of the takeaways from that group include just worries about habitat loss, fractioning, ensuring future water quality, and engaging the community in different scientific activities. Again, we also talked about a couple of these a few months ago, but a few issues that were noted from public safety and emergency response just included the difficulty in finding volunteer responders during the day and ensuring adequate funding and preparation for rural cities to respond to emergencies. And overall, school districts didn't have a whole lot to say when we talked to them, but they brought up the importance of mental health services, and also noted that school districts do have difficulty sometimes with school closures and plow schedules. So our next steps now, we've scheduled our next SRC meeting here for Tuesday, October 12th. At that meeting, we hope to discuss the draft transportation land use sections, some supplemental planning strategies that are kind of looking at best practices or case studies from other plans, other research that we've looked at, and hopefully in introductory discussion on goals and objectives to include in the new plan. Beyond that, we are still looking for a public input meeting either mid-November or December, either before or after the Thanksgiving holiday. But with that, I'll probably stop if you had any thoughts or questions here.
Do we have any questions for Adam at this time? Doesn't sound like anybody's got any questions for you, Adam. Thank you very much.
All righty, thank you. The neith item, did you just want to jump to the community profile briefly here?
Yeah, we can just touch on that quick. Has everyone seen this? I did send it out. Just looking for any comments, if anyone has had a chance to read it, anything that we missed, anything we should be included. Just feel free to, if you need something to read, send me an email, let me know, say, hey, this section is way off, or this doesn't look right. I sent you one thing I will say is I did send it a reduced size PDF because it was quite large, and so some of the graphics might look a little fuzzy. If you want a fresh, clean copy, I can either mail you one or you can come get one from me.
Mail me one, please, Matt.
Mail you one? Okay.
I'll look at it online. I don't need to print 49 pages.
Adam, I'm wondering too, if the planning commission is open to this, maybe this is something we could wait until after put as an item for our next study review committee meeting. Might not be a bad idea to at some point just post that online on our plan website, and then just let people know that is open for any public comment or input as well.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Yeah.
Well, it must have been really good. Good job, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got any other unfinished business, Matt?
I just will say that, last month you, as a commission, made a recommendation to the board to approve that rezoning for the Red River Valley Co-op Power. And that was brought to the board last week. There was discussion on that, and the board ultimately denied that 3-2 vote to deny that rezoning recommendation. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
I have a comment. It's probably not a very nice one. Probably shouldn't say it. The Moorhead Public Service was, I thought, brought about and attacked this outfit that came through with a pretty honest, pretty straightforward proposal. Absolutely no risk out there whatsoever. I don't believe a word that the Moorhead Public Service said. They put out there a bunch of innuendos. They threw out the PCBs, which they know has been illegal since 1974, and they know that's not where they're going to store them. Moorhead Public Service, and in extension, Moorhead looked real bad in my eyes. It was a disgusting display, because nothing they said was true. And then he comes up with this thing about the well. I'm not going to rant on, because I could rant on until I turn blue in the face and maybe have a heart attack and die. This was horrible display of misinformation. It's just too bad that we as a town, nobody knows what wellhead protection means. Wellhead protection to Moorhead seems to be absolutely no development on the water, on the aquifer, not the Moorhead public, not their Moorhead water wellhead, on the Moorhead, on the Buffalo River aquifer. To me, it appears that they have appropriated the whole thing, and it's theirs and theirs only, and they don't want anybody else in there. And they're gonna come up with all kinds of stories, and it was disgusting. Wellhead protection, to me, should mean that if you meet all the regulations of the state of Minnesota, and by golly, the state has a lot of them, that should be the deciding factor, not some misinformation campaign by some outfit within a city. That was horrible, and I'm gonna quit because I'll go on forever and just get madder. It was just horrible. I'm done.
All right, I'll finish. Mr. Chair, I had the same opinion, and I've got nothing against Moorhead. This is where I'm from. Or the wellhead protection area. My only concern is when we start saying that you cannot build, considering how big that aquifer is, and their stand was, you cannot build here, then we're gonna need to have some parameters about what do you mean by you cannot build. We cannot put houses there. We cannot build businesses there. What can we not build there? If this is gonna be the case, there's gonna have to be some discussion between Clay County and Moorhead about what's gonna be allowed on that aquifer. Because there's gonna be a lot of restrictions on a regular basis when they start coming in and saying, we're not gonna allow this, we're not gonna allow that, we're not gonna allow this. So I think that it is important to know what they're saying we can't do with that aquifer, on that aquifer, because it's not the end of it. And we need to be sure we have some kind of guidance on what we're gonna do in the future. Either how we wanna protect it or what we're gonna allow in the future.
Andrew, I'm gonna go one
People are
step
gonna wanna build houses and they're gonna wanna put them in that area. That is a commercial zone in there. What kind of commercial areas are we gonna put down County 11? Are we gonna tell everybody that you cannot build on County 11 now because it's on top of the aquifer? It's some discussion you really need to have.
And I wholeheartedly agree with you, Andrea. That
They did.
needs to be.
They have said that you can't do anything.
And the issue to me is that we have time to have that discussion. You know, the wellhead protection zone, I think, was the issue, is removing the zoning. It wasn't necessarily saying what, or restricting what can be done, but it's removing a zoning.
That to me was one of the least invasive type building areas you could have put on that spot, and they denied that. Well, if that's the case, there's gonna be very little building allowed if you don't allow something like that. There's gonna be very little allowed in that area.
Well, I might say, I think that from someone who's not spent a whole lot of time on the Clay County Board, I've certainly seen this happen several times, and I think it's important for this. There always seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between what happens in the Planning Commission or Board of Adjustment and how it gets relayed to the county board, and maybe where the county board wants to project growth and how this board maybe wants to project growth. And I think that after our EDA meeting, and Adam talked a little bit about this, I really do think we need to have some sort of training session or recap session about the different overlays within the county for this board, but also for the county board, because there are new members on that board that, yes, Commissioner Campbell was on the board when we created the aquifer overlay. But I think because we're making very, very important decisions in terms of land use and growth and development and environmental protection, we all really need to know the ins and outs of those conversations. And I agree, if we are setting a precedent about development over that aquifer, we all need to be on the same page with that, because then that should really in turn how we look at all the wells that are currently going in that aquifer, all the way down to Wilkin County. And they're, yes, I'm frustrated, but the reality is, I learned a long time that the will of the board is what the will of the board is, and that's where you stand, and then you deal with it. And I think that where we go from here is we probably need to be better about the trainings and the conversations. And as a county board member, I'll advocate for the voices and concerns that I'm hearing. And I can say that I didn't have anyone reach out to me on either side of that issue. Not one. Not one to protect the aquifer, not one to, not to protect it, but not one to permit. And so I think that this board and/or citizens need to reach out and advocate for things that they're passionate about.
Could I ask Brian a question? Can you get that defined? What is wellhead protection? What does that mean? Yeah, please. Does the state of Minnesota have a definite definition of that? Or, and to not contradict you, Andrea, but I think we don't care about the city of Moorhead. I want to see about what the state has, what's the state rules on that? And that's what should be dictating what wellhead protection is. Not somebody else's opinion, the state rules. Whatever they are. If you could,
I'll look at, I don't know if Matt has any information that he can provide. I don't have anything I can provide to Mr. Chair at this time. I can sure look for it.
Mr. Chair and Brian, this is what I presented to the Planning Commission and also the County Commission. These are the definitions from the Minnesota Department of Health, who is the state agency that oversees drinking water and groundwater for drinking water in the state of Minnesota. So they define a wellhead protection area simply as the area that surrounds a public water supply well that can contribute groundwater to the well, and where contamination can affect the drinking water supply. So that's basically what they define as the wellhead protection area.
And then I think furthermore, just a little bit, just for this board's broad understanding, the city of Sabin sits on top of that.
Yep.
I mean, and so I think that's where I go with making sure we're consistent is,
Yep. And
it's tricky.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mojo, I will say I did just get a letter in the mail yesterday from the city of Sabin. They just updated their wellhead protection plan. And so now if what the city is requesting is any land use changes, permits, anything like that would come before the Planning Commission, if it's 2 miles outside of their jurisdiction, they would like to see those. They'd like to be noticed of them. Same with the city of Ulen. And in the letter, what I thought was interesting, and this was something that was kind of a learning experience for me too, is they specifically called out high capacity wells as the biggest threat to drinking water supply. So, and high capacity wells are pulling out million gallons of water a year on an annual basis, 100,000 gallons a day, so whereas the proposed Red River Valley Co-op power, I mean, we're probably talking 10,000 gallons a month, maybe. That nowhere near what a high capacity well is. So no more than a residence, which would be permitted. And that's something I did put up on here too, is in our use table in our development code, there is specifically, it does state what would be permitted in the wellhead protection area. Commercial agriculture, less than 50 animal units is an example. Farm buildings not used as dwellings. Forest management, there's not really going to be any of that going on in Clay County at all, probably. A single family dwelling, if you want to open up a bed and breakfast, you can do that. Daycare, residential programs, second dwelling. It's when you get into the commercial uses where you start to see all these blanks mean it's not permitted. You can do a farmer's market. You could have
Have a well and a toilet there.
Yeah.
porta potties, yeah.
But
You could do temporary tire or waste collection and recycling operations in the wellhead protection area.
But see, there's where I say there's significant inconsistencies in what we've decided is approved, and what maybe other jurisdictions, what their understanding is.
Yeah, and I, this is before my time, and this is probably something I should sit down with Commissioner Campbell about and ask, what about some of the decisions that were made to decide what would be appropriate in wellhead protection and what would not be appropriate. For commercial uses, I can guarantee you that what's allowed is, I don't know if any of these things have even ever been permitted in Clay County before, because they're just not very popular. They're not common uses.
And I talked to you on the phone, a commercial is a big word, and just because it's commercial doesn't mean it's gonna be hazardous. This is basically a farm shop, which would be permitted in the area. It was basically farm shops are bigger than this. Have a well, and their own sewer system. These guys were gonna go in and put in their own tank.
Yeah.
I look at Strata Corporation, who Morehead Public Service tried to shut down a few years ago, and they're still there, because apparently they're meeting all the permits by the Public Service Commission, or Pollution Control, or what'd you say, Public Service?
They would probably have MPCA permits for them, yeah.
Apparently they're qualifying for all the permits. And that's what doesn't make any sense here. They got a fuel tank out there for their on-site charge, and it's permitted because it's legal. They're doing what's legally allowed in the state of Minnesota. And that's, to me, I just can't get past it. That should be the benchmark for deciding these things, not some emotional thing that people comes, it's a sign of our times. I know it. You put out the big bad guy and, oh my goodness, something's gonna happen, and you make it as bad as you can sound, make it sound as bad as you can possibly make it when it really isn't. And that's a sign of our times, and it'd be horrible, to be honest, disappointing. More than anything, I was so disappointed, I didn't hardly sleep that night. It was just so disappointing that they would come and act and be that. I can't say the other word, disappointed. Because we should, as a society, you would hope we'd be better than that, but doggone it, we just aren't. It's gotten to be too bad, but that's just my opinion, and neither here nor there. But we need to have some kind of clear, and not, like I say, not somebody's opinion, somebody's state law. It's got to be somewhere in here, somebody's got in the state has to, got to be able to make this is a reasonable, they've taken all the safeguards to reasonably protect the watershed, the waterhead area, or the aquifer, whichever it is. It just should be. And it doesn't seem to be. The Morehead Public Service didn't want, opposed the building of a residence down there a few years ago. And they'll say they didn't, but I think if you talk to Glendon Township Board of Commissioners, they might offer a different opinion, if they're willing to put it out, give it to you. It's everything on there, and that's just not right, because we've been living on top of the aquifer for years, and we're gonna have to live on it for many, many more. I'm sorry. I had to vent, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry if I got a little bit crotchety, I think is the word. Yeah, me. I try not to let things bother me, but this one really did. I'm, like I say, disappointed mostly. It's horrible, horrible. New business. Just be honest. Come in and say, we don't want this here. But to sit there and say that it's gonna cause traffic problems, and it could cause contamination because you got 5 pickups, and then they add all kinds of, and they also throw in the PCBs a couple of times just to emphasize that. And when I ask them about what about the Highway 10 and the railroad, well, we've got emergency plans for that. Well, they can't do nothing about that. Come on, there's 2 irrigation wells within, mile and a half of this place. You know how big of an irrigation pipe is? A rascal's huge. Well, I think the Moorhead Public Service needs to have that exact same conversation.
They need to be part of the conversation. Absolutely. Saban, you need to have the people that are actually sitting on and using part of that conversation.
Maybe so, but we'll move on because you can't defend them to me at this point. So like I say, I'm too emotional about the deal. So you're probably right, though. I'll agree with that. There has to be a clear understanding of what it is. That's enough.
Anybody else has anything to say? I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, we're not done. New business. Draft community profile discussion.
We did that.
We did that.
That was what Adam was going on.
Yep.
What he said. I'll second it. We have a motion and a second to close,
To adjourn the meeting?
adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Meeting adjourned.